Heidi-ho, fellas! What's buzzing, cousins? Welcome to another episode of the Top 10 Favorite and from what I believe are the best performances by the GOATs. You know what I mean, the greatest actresses of all time. You ain't just whistling Dixie. Yep, I'm starting from 10 and then boogieing and seducing my way up to number 1. One of those is really true. And keep in mind, my friends, I have seen every film that is attainable of these artists. Keyword, attainable. So every list on here comes from true and passionate accuracy. Well, my friends, yes, this has been a long time coming, I believe, and there's nothing that gives me more pleasure than being able to talk about one of the most iconic, inspirational, groundbreaking, and brilliant actresses, not just of the golden age of Hollywood, but literally in history. Barbara Stanwyck. Born as Ruby Stevens in Brooklyn, Ruby didn't really have the best upbringing, as you can imagine, with her mother dying when she was only 4 years old and her dad deserting the family, which left Ruby and her brother orphaned, sent to various foster homes growing up, where Ruby would often run away. You can sense where the tough attitude of the future Stanwyck would come from. She was later raised by her eldest sister Mildred, who was a showgirl, which planted a seed of performing already at a young age of 14. She dropped out of high school and ran towards show business, dancing for the Strand Roof, the old nightclub in Times Square, and then as a chorus girl, part of the Ziegfeld Follies. She rapidly made her way to Broadway in the play The Noose, where she met David Belasco, the world-famous playwright and producer, who suggested to Ruby she should change her name. And she did, combining the first name of the title character, Barbara, with the last name of the actress playing the part, Stanwyck. She went on to Burlesque, and of course, once you become a big deal on Broadway, Hollywood comes a-knockin'. Barbara Stanwyck, ladies and gentlemen, I don't have to tell you, is one of the greatest actresses of all time. If I had a list of favorite actresses ever, she's easily in my top 5, honestly rivaling my number 1 spot of Bette Davis. She was commonly known as the most natural, the most relevant, the most giving. She devoted herself to the industry enormously, but also she just kept it real, so to speak. Every single performance she has ever given in film is breathtakingly dynamic and powerfully honest. Right from the very beginning of her career in film, when she got her first real big break with Ladies of Leisure, directed by the man, the myth, the legend himself, Frank Capra, we can see the modern realism just erupt off the screen, captivating the real time and challenge of what an American woman went through during these depressing times, in a way no other actress at this time could really emulate like her. Needless to say, my friends, it is certainly the toughest top 10 I would ever do for an artist, because for Barbara, you need a top 50. But you know what I always say, you break your own rules, you're going to hell. Well, I don't know if that's an actual saying, but I'll go with it. Once again, I don't do TV appearances because we all know that's a whole lot of freaking TV, man. But we all remember her iconic Barbara Stanwyck show, right? Playing, well, herself, hosting, but also in different roles, like an anthology series. It only lasted 1 season, but she still won the Emmy for Best Actress, most deservedly so. The show itself is fantastic, with 11 episodes directed by the great Jacques Tourneur, who has directed such classics like Out of the Past and Cat People. Her other notable TV appearances include another Emmy-winning performance as Victoria Barkley in the classic The Big Valley, her amazing portrayal as Constance Colby on Dynasty, which led to the spin-off series The Colbys, but of course, who could ever forget her masterful performance as Mary Carson in the miniseries The Thornbirds. For those of you who know, don't watch this series if you're having a great day. It will tear your heart out and stomp on it and then set it on fire. Barbara gives one of the most moving performances on television ever, with her show-stopping scene, I still feel, I still want, I still dream, and I still love you. Oh God, how much? In one take. One take, people. Everyone on set that day erupted in thunderous applause when they yelled cut on that scene for Barbara, and she rightfully so, earned her last Emmy for Best Actress. Never has there ever been an actress so confident, so professional, so damn brilliant, who was not even that much of a diva. She had demands, obviously. I mean, come on. What artist doesn't? She just committed to the work and made magic with her own truth. So take it off the E string, play it on the G string, and let's boogie as we talk about the top 10 best performances of the Queen, the incomparable, the amazing Barbara Stanwyck. Starting off at number 10, we have one of the greatest holiday classics that ever existed, Christmas in Connecticut, which features Barbara Stanwyck in one of her most iconic roles, especially every holiday season, of course. She plays Elizabeth Lane, a famous food columnist who writes about cooking, being the best housewife and mother possible. And with the simple war hero Jefferson, played by Dennis Morgan, returning home and absolutely loving her columns, Elizabeth's publisher, played wonderfully by Sydney Greenstreet, says this is the perfect marketing tool. Invite the sailor over for a lovely Christmas dinner. Coming to find out, Elizabeth is a fraud and uses her chef friend Felix's recipes. So can she accurately cook a Christmas dinner in time without even knowing how to boil an egg? Ooh, catastrophe! This has Hallmark written all over it, doesn't it? But my God, these were the days where these kind of plots worked beautifully, mostly because we had brilliant actors playing these roles. And with Stanwyck as Elizabeth Lane, we hit the jackpot of holiday cheer. This is certainly one of the great examples of her comedic chops that countless many to this day, including TCM's Ben Mankiewicz, watch continuously every year. It's so iconic that it even granted a made-for-TV remake starring Diane Cannon, directed by none other than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not making this up. It's pretty ridiculous. There are so many great lines in this film to count, and Barbara sizzles every single one. Especially the classic, I'm tired of being pushed around, tired of being told what to do, tired of writing your goddamn articles, tired of dancing to everybody else's tune, tired of being told who to marry. In short, I'm tired. It's just hunky-dunky. Number 9, Babyface. One of the most notorious films of pre-code Hollywood, released in 1933, starring Barbara as Lily Powers, a daughter of a speakeasy owner in Erie, PA, who is sexually exploited ever since she was a kid. She sums up the courage after being given some Nietzschean advice to use men. Use them as a master. Use them to get things you want. So she seduces and sleeps her way to the top, working at a big city bank. Co-written by producer Daryl Zanuck under a pseudonym, this is quite the heavy picture, which, oh yes, famously was one of the big films, the final straw, so to speak, that put the Hays Code in full effect because of its sexual nature. The Hays office had been around for a long time to this point already, but it was this film, among many, that made them pump the brakes, even going as far as forcing a happy ending and cutting some important scenes. But thank God for TCM for premiering the uncensored version, which we all can find now. Barbara Stanwyck is just in her golden prime. As said before, every film she did, she gives everything. But the pre-code era is really a special era for Stanwyck because she was in her mid-20s and every performance is just vibrant, seductive, highly engaging, and utterly powerful. Many have said, if you've never seen pre-code Stanwyck, you've never seen Stanwyck. Of all the countless brilliant performances she has given during the pre-code era, I think her Lily Powers in Babyface is a performance for the ages. Just the sequence when a frickin' dope is trying to grope her, she busts a bottle over his head, he goes away, and then she just goes back to drinking nonchalantly. It's epic. Even when she tells her father off and then watches her father die in a fiery blaze with no emotion is radically beautiful. Her focus and body language is something I've never seen before when I first saw her here as a kid. That's right, I remember seeing this movie when I was probably like 12 years old on TCM. It blew my mind. And just the prowess she embodies, especially when she shares a nice little scene with a young John Wayne. Hey there. I personally hate the ending, but yes, that's the Hays Code for you. However, that doesn't stop Barbara's amazing performance from standing out, don't you know? Number 8, My Reputation. Another slightly underrated Christmas classic, filmed in 1942, obviously during the heat of the war, and was only showed to soldiers overseas during that time, but got its release in 1946. mainly because Warner Brothers thought it would be more appreciated and loved when the war was over. Based on the novel Instruct My Sorrows, Barbara plays Jessica Drummond, a widower with 2 sons, who is then influenced by her friend, played wonderfully by Eve Arden, to go skiing with them. There she meets George Brent, an army major, and sparks indeed start a-flying. But will the negative pressure from her friends and mother influence her feelings for him? Barbara is utterly fantastic in this picture because it requires her to be up and down emotionally, not having full control of her actions, to go back and forth between decisions. When asked why she wanted to come up and ski, because I was still coward enough to want to save my reputation. Hey, she said it. She said the title. It's delightful romance, an effective melodrama, and a heartwarming comedy with Christmas spirit all wrapped in a snuggly blanket. Barbara has said this performance and film was among her favorite, and she provides us such a journey that tugs like crazy on our heartstrings. Number 7, Meet John Doe. One of the most endearing pictures from one of my personal favorite directors, Frank Capra. Her performance as Anne Mitchell is what really helps drive this sentimental, idealistic classic that you can't imagine anyone else in the role. Well, maybe Jean Arthur, another favorite from Capra Pictures. But funny enough, both Anne Sheridan and Olivia de Havilland were offered the role of Anne before Barbara. Thank God Missy chose this one, playing a hard-working columnist who has 2 daughters and takes care of her mother, being laid off. So to get back at them, she writes a firecracker of a last column with a suicide note by a fictional John Doe, protesting the injustice done to the meek, everyday people. Now here comes the real drama. The newspaper goes nuts over this. She reveals it's false, but they can exploit it with a schmo they hire on the street to pose as John Doe. And in walks John Willoughby, Long John Willoughby, which they called him in baseball. They groom him to speak as John Doe, which he has no interest in, but the people love him. Even the evil D.B. Norton, played by the consistently villainous Edward Arnold, who wants to use this for a little political gain. You have Capra delivering the goods with his stock company. Cooper, Arnold, James Gleason, Gene Lockhart, Spring Byington, but most of all, Stanwyck. Of the 5 films Capra and Stanwyck did together, including Ladies of Leisure, The Miracle Woman, God, I love that performance in that film, Forbidden, and The Bitter Tea of General Yen, all terrific performances in films. This is, without a doubt, the best. Because Stanwyck was at the height of her powers, a real pro. She really grew into the industry at this point, and she had true freedom to give the character of Anne Mitchell much, much more. Everyone always remembers the final scene where her character was sick, and it's Christmas Eve again. Frank Capra, he sure loves his Christmas, but she tries to stop John from actually committing suicide. Spoiler alert, sorry guys. And she gives that beautiful speech to him with the John Doe Club members to stay alive for the people. Keep going. They need you. And then she suddenly faints. It was actually freezing on that set, and to see Barbara give everything she has is always inspirational to actors everywhere. She famously said, "You make other pictures to live, but you live to make a Capra picture." Number 6, Sorry, Wrong Number. God, how I wish this was much, much higher, as it so deservedly should be. Her performance as Leona Stevenson was her 4th and final Academy Award nominated performance for Best Actress, and Jesus, is it tensely incredible. Based on an original radio play performed by the master herself, Agnes Moorehead. Stanwyck is a spoiled daughter of a rich business owner, married against their family's wish to Henry, played by Burt Lancaster. She's an invalid, bedridden, due to her questionable heart condition, but of course, still smoking. I mean, what's the real problem here? But she's talking on the telephone and all of a sudden gets connected to a phone call where 2 men might be planning a murder. As she's trying to get to the bottom of it, the whole film is told through flashback and how Barbara and Burt built their relationship, but also how the conflict builds, which is quite enjoyable enough, but not as enjoyable as the present-day tension provided special by Barbara Stanwyck. The whole sequence in the very beginning, when we see her talk on the phone, just swimmingly, without a real care, and then the slow realization of what she is hearing on the other end of the phone is masterclass acting. And it was really hard for Missy filming this over apparently a 12-day period, 5 days on, 2 days off. and by the end of it, she was just drained. I mean, how can you blame her with all the earth-shatteringly real actions and reactions she's giving to this character? I always believe there is nothing sexier and more captivating than just watching someone think and react on screen. No dialogue, having it all in the eyes. And Barbara just nails it, of course. By the time we get to the ending, which I won't spoil for you, I was shocked, truly shocked with how it ended. And I love it so very much. I was just so glad that they actually went there. When it comes to phone call thrillers like Scream, When a Stranger Calls, Phone Booth, even Memento, Sorry Wrong Number should definitely come very high on the list, thanks to Barbara's phenomenally committed performance. Number 5, Ball of Fire. I love this movie. One hell of a classic comedy, very, very, very loosely based on, yes, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, with 7 professors writing a new encyclopedia on modern slang, with one of them, Gary Cooper, doing his own independent research, meeting the Ball of Fire herself, Sugarpuss O'Shea, played brilliantly by Stanwyck in her second Academy Award nominated performance for Best Actress. She agrees to help the professors slightly, only to hide out from the police because of her mob boss boyfriend, played excellently by Dana Andrews. Co-written by Charles Brackett and Billy Wilder, based on a short story co-written by Wilder as well, which was nominated for Best Original Story, but also recycled from Danny Kaye's A Song is Born, this Howard Hawks directed treasure never ceases to amaze audiences to this day, with the captivating, cheeky, and sensational performance of Hilarity by Stanwyck. She and Gary Cooper meet again after doing Meet John Doe together, and God, they just work amazingly together with all their yum-yums and their shoves in your clutch, etc. Lucille Ball was originally going to play Sugarpuss, and she would have been perfect. But then they offered Ginger Rogers the role, and she famously declined, saying she didn't like how common Sugarpuss is. But they got Barbara on the Amici, and she was all for it, because Barbara always said, "I don't have a problem playing common, because I am common." A brilliant artist who knew who she was, knew where she came from, and didn't give a whoop about image, to an extent. The whole cast is brilliant. I mean, my God, we have some of the greatest character actors playing the professors. It's genius. And their whole world is turned upside down for the most fun because of Barbara. Considered by many critics as the last screwball comedy of the golden age of Hollywood, this masterclass of comedy is one never to be forgotten. Of course, all thanks to Missy. Number 4, Clash by Night. An extremely heartfelt and engaging melodrama with a great kick of romantic film noir, which, if you know me, it's right up my alley. And who better to lead this powerful story than Barbara? Based on the classic Clifford Odets play, Barbara takes over the role of May Doyle, which Tallulah Bankhead originated on Broadway. May returns to her hometown fishing village in Monterey after a dreadful life of broken love in New York. The moment May enters into the town and heads into the diner is just captivating all by itself. I remember just being hooked by the time Barbara enters the frame. She meets her brother, Joe, and his new boo, Peggy, played greatly by Marilyn Monroe, and they agree to house her. She then meets Jerry, played miraculously by Paul Douglas, and they begin a beautiful romance to her hesitation, though, because of course, she has a bad history of love. To really put it in 4 words, big idea, small results. But she then meets Jerry's good friend, Earl, played excellently by Robert Ryan, and the real love triangle can begin. Barbara, again, is just mesmerizing as May Doyle, and under the direction of Fritz Lang, she gets to showcase the deep and darker side of a woman at the end of her rope, wanting to start anew. Each action May does involving love here is just vicious, but at the same time, we really understand where she's coming from. We truly empathize with her because of Barbara's care and truth with portraying May. Barbara was actually going through her heart-wrenching divorce with Robert Taylor during filming. But not once did Barbara diva out. Not once did Barbara ever show any signs of unprofessionalism. She remained the ultimate professional. Even when Marilyn flubbed her lines constantly, she was always there to help Maryland, and to help her fellow actors, which I always love. This quote-unquote B picture certainly remains much more than a B picture to me, because I personally believe Barbara's performance was definitely worthy of an Oscar nod. But, me and my ideas. Number 3, Double Indemnity. Okay, these next 3 were really difficult, my friends, but come on. One of the greatest film noirs ever made, which even to this day, folks alike cater this film as being the most notable and influential film noir ever. Which, I mean, I wouldn't go that far personally, but it is obviously one of the best. You really want to know why? 2 names, Barbara and Stanwyck, playing the ultimate femme fatale, Phyllis Dietrichson, the seductive housewife who convinces the poor dope Walter Neff in murdering her husband to get the insurance money, but double the amount due to a double indemnity clause. Get it? However, Walter's colleague, Barton Keyes, played greatly by Edward G. Robinson, suspects some screwy happenings here, and she may have murdered him. Based on the novel by James M. Cain, this has been expertly adapted by Raymond Chandler and Billy Wilder, but mostly Chandler, because it's Chandler's dark and melancholic mood that creeps over this setting, fueling these characters' actions with such confidence and force. And Barbara certainly leads the way effortlessly. She was famously reluctant to take on the role of Phyllis because, as she put it, I was a little afraid after all these years playing heroines to now go into an out-and-out killer. And Wilder said, "Well, are you a mouse? Or are you an actress?" And she said she'd been grateful to Wilder ever since. I will agree that her performance here definitely lifted the lid of versatility for Stanwyck in a way not many actresses experienced in their career. And it was a sincere risk, playing all these great leading parts before, and then to play such a cold, dark, brutal temptress. But it all worked out in the end, because you know why? Barbara is the frickin' best. The main point is presence. God, how Barbara could command a room without even saying a thing. My God, I will never forget the actual murder sequence where she's driving the car. Mr. Dietrichson is in the passenger seat, and Walter is behind him, awaiting to do the deed. They make it to the planned stop. She honks the horn, and then we don't see the actual murder. We only see the cold, emotionless, and yet satisfied stare on Stanwyck's face. She sells everything in just that shot alone. Her performance, to this day, is regarded and listed in many critic circles as one of the greatest performances in film ever, which I totally agree with. Number 2, The Lady Eve. I tell you folks, this honestly does rival the number 1 spot. Her performance, or shall we say, her double performance as Jean and the Lady Eve, is one of the greatest in comedy, period. But certainly her greatest comedic performance. Written and directed by one of the great masters of comedy, Preston Sturges, we meet Charles Rich, an heir to a brewery, but snakes are his life. After returning from an Amazonian trip, we then meet Jean, one of 3 card sharks who are looking to con the next rich dweeb, and after a hilarious mirror spying game, she finds her bookworm, and the hilarity just explodes from here, doesn't it? Stanwyck just owns this role. The chemistry between she and Henry Fonda is just perfect. It's no wonder why Fonda always said his favorite leading lady was Stanwyck. The cabin scene is one of my favorites ever. What a beautiful thing that Sturges even wrote the role for Stanwyck, which at first Stanwyck was a little troubled on all the screwball behavior in the script. But after a while, she absolutely had the time of her life making this picture. Normally, if it isn't the star's coverage being filmed, they would go back to their trailer. Oh, but no. She and Fonda hung around with Sturges to hear all his stories and run their lines constantly, which, coming from this actor over here, they definitely needed to. When you see the heavy dialogue of a Sturges script, you're like, my God. And then turn it up to 11, it takes actors of real training and skill to make it come alive and naturally funny at the pace that you need to do it in, which Stanwyck does with such effortless charisma, especially when she changes her appearance to the Lady Eve, which the only change is her English accent. Jesus, The fact that he doesn't recognize it's her is freaking hilarious. They look too alike to be the same. Barbara's accent work is really great too. And again, she showcases how she can turn from a no-good con to an upper-class socialite. Of the 3 majestically phenomenal films she did in the same year of 1941, including Ball of Fire and Meet John Doe, what a year, without a doubt. The Lady Eve stands out among the best. It's just so amazing the same actress of power can portray all these great characters. But yes, it is positively the same dame. You know damn well we got some honorable mentions here. The Strange Love of Martha Ivers. No, Martha Smith. Quite an interesting melodramatic film noir based on the novel Love Lies Bleeding. This was actually one of the other first films I ever saw of Barbara Stanwyck, and I was captivated yet again with her body language, her intensity, and yet her genuine realism. It's definitely a performance of great power at the height of her own powers. Annie Oakley. Yes, the 1935 George Stevens directed classic with Missy playing the epic markswoman herself. Annie Oakley, the biopic that takes quite a lot of romantic liberties, for sure, and really delves into the romantic love affair between Annie and Toby Walker during the Buffalo Bill Wild West show. But you know what? Being Barbara and George Stevens' first Western, this is still a whole lot of fun. Barbara was sick of the same old roles she was given and never really got a chance to stretch in different genres at this time of 1935, when she was under contract. As she has said herself, "My only problem is finding a way to play the 40th fallen victim a different way than the 39th. So she decided to freelance with RKO, and this is what she got. The film works splendidly, really because of Stanwyck, who gives Annie Oakley such charisma and complexity. You believe her through and through as the greatest sharpshooter ever. Remember the Night, a big-time underrated Christmas classic, pairing Stanwyck and Fred MacMurray together here for the first of 4 collaborations they would have together, as they try to enjoy the holidays together, even though Stanwyck has been caught shoplifting for the 3rd time, and MacMurray has to prosecute her. But the trial is postponed for the holidays, and he posts her bail, escorts her to his family home for the holidays, and wouldn't you know it, they fall in love. But what's going to happen when the trial happens? I truly adore this film, folks, and it remains a personal favorite of mine every Christmas. What helps is the strength of Barbara's performance and what elevates the comedy and drama, even though it's already beautifully written by one of the greatest filmmakers ever, Preston Sturges. So you can understand why I love it so much. And yes, it was this picture where Sturges and Stanwyck got to know each other very well, which propelled Sturges to write and direct The Lady Eve. So her performance as Lee Leander here certainly holds a special place in my heart. The Furies. Quite frankly, the best Western Barbara ever did. Directed by one of the underrated masters of Westerns, Anthony Mann. Based on the novel, but honestly really more like King Lear and Dostoevsky's The Idiot. Barbara steps in as Vance Jeffords, a fiery cattle ranch heiress who really clashes with her ruthless father, played amazingly by Walter Houston in his last role. And she wants to claim the land given to all his enemies. But he meets Flo Burnett, played exquisitely by Judith Anderson, and all hell breaks loose. Throw in those scissors. What are you thinking, Barbara? Stanwyck is so damn good in this, willing to do all her own horse riding and stunts, and she is just on fire in every scene. It's one of those amazing and poetic performances and westerns that failed critically and financially at the time of 1950, which is such a shame, but has gained an honorable preservation by Criterion, and to this day regarded as a work of art. And I couldn't agree more. Lady of Burlesque. Oh, a hilarious murder mystery musical comedy based on the book The G-String Murders, written by the Gypsy Rose Lee. Can you believe that? Yes, Gypsy, we all know your name and we all love you too. Starring Barbara as one of a fun group of burlesque performers who find another performer dead backstage, and one by one they get plucked off, being strangled by their G-strings. So they do their best to find out who the killer is. But it's a joyous musical comedy. They just don't make them like these anymore, do they, folks? Where you have such a great balance of wit and tense mystery, with Barbara leading the pack all the way, gloriously. For major Stanwyck fans alike, I think we all agree this is a personal favorite, seeing Barbara what she does best with her tough cookie attitude, hot wit, and amazing dancing. Look at her do those splits and cartwheels. My God, it fits perfectly for her since Missy obviously started in Burlesque and as a chorus girl, and we get to see Barbara perform like no other here. This film is obviously available in public domain, so I think it's one of the greatest times you'll have with Missy. I mean, she certainly did. Number 1, Stella Dallas. I couldn't deny it, folks. Barbara's amazing leading performance as the title role Stella has stopped the hearts of millions for decades since its premiere in 1937, based on the book by Olive Higgins Prouty. Even though this is the second remake out of 3 film adaptations of the beloved story, this is, by all means, a superior edition. Helmed by the great King Vidor, this weeper highlights Stanwyck's first Academy Award-nominated performance for Best Actress. Stanwyck was well-respected and known at this time, but she still had to screen test, which she never minded. Every time a director asks us to screen test, it just incentivizes us to work harder and give our everything to a role, which Stanwyck 1000% does as Stella, a working-class woman who marries up and has the apple of her eye daughter, Laurel, played by Anne Shirley, in an Academy Award-nominated performance as well. The marriage doesn't work out, so Laurel is really Stella's heart and soul. But once she realizes that Laurel is living the high life with more of her rich friends and wants to pursue the greater life, Stella is heavily criticized for being so common, and she must come to a decision if she should leave Laurel. That just breaks your heart. And the chemistry between Shirley and Stanwyck is what makes it such a gripping melodrama. Honestly, this is really everything anybody wants out of Stanwyck here. You have the tough cookie from Massachusetts with some attitude and style. You have the fun and vibrant party girl of party girls. And you have the sweet sentimental anguish that a single mother feels for her precious daughter. One of the greatest scenes in film ever, and certainly one of the most amazing scenes that locked her Oscar nomination alone, is of course the final scene. I'm sorry I have to spoil it, folks. You've had 86 years to watch it. What do you want? But when Stella has already dismissed Laurel and she's watching Laurel get married through the window in the rain, it takes your breath away. Just to think you have to ask a cop for permission to watch your own daughter, the bride, kiss the groom. It's so tragic. And the look on Stanwyck's face as she tearfully stares at Laurel with such rewarding love that she walks away in triumph, saying to herself, "That's my daughter." It's the performance of Stanwyck that, in my opinion, should have won her the Oscar. However, to this day, Stella Dallas, to me at least, and to the amazing filmmaker Akira Kurosawa, remains Barbara Stanwyck's most heartfelt, most beautiful, and most soulful performance. Once again, the same could be said for every damn performance she's given in film and television. The hits just never end. Even when the film is horrible, she's amazing. Her marriage life may have not been the best, most notably to the biggest prick in Hollywood, apparently Frank Fay, and then later marrying debonair actor Robert Taylor, but then divorcing, and then having an estranged relationship with her son. It's never easy and never perfect, but what matters most is your perseverance, your fighting spirit, to get up every morning and face the day, even if you're doing what you love to do. There are down times. But Barbara was always the shining example, at least for me, of being the best you can, being the utmost professional, the committed artist who was never going to be denied. She was often called the best actress who never won an Oscar, which is the absolute tragedy. But she was given the Honorary Academy Award in 1982, where she lovingly dedicated it to Bill Holden, who publicly thanked her at the Academy Awards 4 years earlier for sticking up for him when they did Golden Boy together. It's common knowledge today that any groundbreaking actor doesn't win an Oscar because, once again, every performance they give is gold. But still, a little actual gold would be nice, you know? She sadly passed away only 9 days after I was born, at the humble age of 82. But her work lives on amazingly today, still inspiring a whole new generation of artists. Most notably, Laura Dern, Virginia Madsen, Sally Field, among dozens more who look at Barbara Stanwyck as their idol. More than being an amazing artist, she was just a great human being, supporting her fellow actors, always giving grace, always there to help, and always embodying the most humility. Whenever she was asked about her success and her career, I love how she puts it. It was a job. I always have felt very privileged to be paid for doing what I love doing. I still look forward to living. I wake up looking forward to each day. Whatever comes, I'm alive. I'm existing. I'm part of it. And I just say, thank God she made all of us part of it too. Now that tears it, folks. Now I ask you, tell me, do you agree with my picks? What are your favorite performances by this incredible artist that deserves all the praise in the world? Please share in the comments below, my friends. I love to hear your comments, and I'd love to get back to you as soon as possible with everything that you do say. Go crazy with the comments. If you like this, I dare ask lovingly, please click like, subscribe, and don't forget to share with all your friends. Oh, and do not forget to sign up for my Patreon page, which is super important. And as always, my dear friends, thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching. Now, I need a bed like an axe needs a turkey.